This is the new Tesla Model Y, also known as the Juniper. It was launched in Denmark at the beginning of 2025. Leading up to this launch, in the course of 2024, there were some wild rumors about what this car would be capable of. Among other things, a pretty impressive extended range. When the car was finally released, I have to admit I was a bit disappointed because for the most part, the specifications of this car were basically the same as the previous version. This is my second video with this updated, refreshed Model Y Juniper. In the first video, if you haven't seen it, the mood is a bit mixed. You can watch it via the link up here in the corner. In this video, I'm going to put the car to the test, specifically testing its range and consumption. I'm also going to do a charging test, and then you'll get the 5 best, but also the 5 worst things I can tell you about this car after having driven it quite a bit over the past 2 weeks. This profile has characterized the Tesla Model Y ever since we Danes got to know the car in 2021. It's a profile that makes the car extremely aerodynamic, and in fact, about 60% of the factors that affect an electric car's consumption, and thus its range, are due to aerodynamics. And that's why, in this video, I've set out to test the car's energy consumption, both at country road speeds and at motorway speeds. And let's start with the country road trip. This is my reference trip, the 140 kilometers around Ringkøbing Fjord. Let's just jump right into it. Now it's time to test country road driving. It will be my reference route from Varde to Sundevig along the beautiful west coast route down around Numindegab. Back to Varde. A total of 140 kilometers on country roads. There are some stretches at 90 kilometers an hour. There are some small towns, so I usually end up with an average speed of around 70 kilometers an hour. I'm starting by navigating towards Sundevig, and it's taking me the right way. That is east of the fjord. And it says I'll arrive there with 56%. I currently have about 70% remaining. I think I'll just go ahead and start a stopwatch right now. And then I just need to reset my consumption. So let's go. Now I'm about to reach Sundevig. I've arrived at the intersection, the northernmost point of the trip. This is also exactly halfway. I've driven 70 kilometers, and if we just take a quick look at the stats, I don't truly know if you can see it, 1 hour and 3 minutes. So it hasn't gone that fast. And by the way, I almost forgot. I've arrived with 58% state of charge, but as mentioned, there was also a bit of traffic. I've been driving a bit slower than the car predicted, so the car's estimate that I would arrive up here with 56% state of charge, that was pretty accurate. Now I'm driving back towards Varde, and it has actually also chosen the right route. That's nice. And it says I'll reach Varde with 47% state of charge. That's exciting. Two hours and 8 minutes. That's about 8 minutes slower than the fastest trips I've done. But there has been a lot of traffic, and there was also some road work where I had to stop in a few places. And let's just take a quick look at the consumption. Wow, 128.6. And oh yeah, I arrived back here with 46% state of charge, which is also very much in line with what the car claimed it would arrive with. Tesla has always been good when it comes to range, and that certainly hasn't changed with this Model Y Juniper. And if I just take a look at my notes here, I ended up with a result, according to the trip computer, of 128.6 watt-hours per kilometer. It dropped significantly from 70% down to 46%, representing a substantial decrease of 24 percentage points of the total range or the car's overall battery capacity. And if I try to combine those two things, first the 128.6 watt-hours per kilometer, then converted to a 75 kilowatt-hour battery, that corresponds to a range of 583 kilometers on a full charge, meaning from 100% down to 0%. And if I carefully look at the 24 percentage points consumed, that also precisely adds up to the 140 kilometers that have been driven, a total of 583 kilometers. So I can say with reasonable confidence that if you drive on country roads under the same conditions as I did on this trip, you can expect a full charge to last for 583 kilometers in this Tesla Model Y Juniper. By the way, let me just emphasize that I also checked the tire pressure. It's as it should be, and the car is running on these optional 20-inch wheels. Now it's time for the Odense challenge. If you're new to the channel, the idea is that I charge the car to 80% to simulate that typical half-hour charging stop you have on a really long trip. On this trip, I start at Esbjerg Airport. It's just a stone's throw from the E20 motorway. There's 130 kilometers an hour speed limit zone all the way to the Triangle region, then it's 110 up to Lillebælt, and then it's back to 130 for a good stretch into Funen again until I get close to Odense. There, I turn around at exit 50 and head back again. There's 129 kilometers each way, so a total of 258 kilometers. If I look at the weather today, it's relatively nice. A bit windy, but it's a very smooth road. Just typical summer days. It looks like it should stay dry. So these are good conditions for the car to make the trip in. What I'm going to do now is go in and reset this trip. And I should just mention, if you can see that, I'm at 81% state of charge, and that's simply because I charged at home. Normally, I would only charge to 80. It should be fine. I'll account for that. I don't think I'll need to charge on this trip. I'm pretty confident that this car is going to perform well. So basically, I'm only missing one thing. That's to start a stopwatch. There, that's done. Let's go. The navigation system was set towards Funen, and the car estimated that I would reach exit 50 with 52% state of charge. Now I'm driving on the stretch of motorway where I usually measure the cabin noise level. The asphalt is completely dry. I'm actually even driving with a tailwind. I still think it seems a bit noisy, but now I'll just try to keep quiet for a moment. (71 dB). At best, that's mediocre, maybe a bit on the noisy side. It could definitely be better. Now I'm at the rest area where I usually use the on-ramp to do an acceleration test of the different cars. I'm going from 0 to 130 kilometers an hour. I'm using my race box here. And of course, I also need to remember to switch to a more dynamic driving mode. So I'm switching from chill to standard, just for this part of it. Now we're driving onto the on-ramp. And let's try it. 3, 2, 1, go. This is the typical and impressive Tesla quickness and acceleration. 100, 20, and 30. Wow, that's incredibly fast. It truly doesn't take long at all. Back to chill. If we just look at the times for a moment, the car did 0 to 100 in 4.76 seconds and 0 to 130 in just under 7 seconds, 6.99 seconds. That's absolutely approved. Can you see the time? Oh, it's almost impossible to see, really. Almost 1 hour and 10. Of course, I've gone in and done my acceleration test. I'll subtract that at the end because I'm also standing still here. Let's just do a quick recap of the trip so far. According to the car here, I've driven 108.8. I've driven 128 kilometers so far. I don't get that at all. Well, okay. My consumption, nice, 178.1. And the weather has been really nice, dry asphalt all the way, but that's really, really an impressive consumption. So what I'm actually doing now is going in and navigating to Esbjerg Airport, and it estimates that we'll arrive back with 10% state of charge. So it looks like it has taken into account that I arrived here with 48, which means I've used 33 percentage points. And it actually thinks that I'll use 38 percentage points on the way home. So that seems reasonable. Let's drive. All right, let's get a precise split time. We're looking at 2 hours and 15 minutes, almost 16 minutes exactly. And now let's just take a closer look at the energy consumption. It's precisely 196.4 watt hours per kilometer. I had a suspicion that we could get below 200 watt hours per kilometer in a Tesla. And we did. The distance is a bit incorrectly stated, and I think that's because I was out of the car when I did my acceleration test, but we'll get back to that. I'm at 11% state of charge. The car predicted 10. All in all, this is really approved. I've arrived at the Tesla SuperChargers in Esbjerg. I simply have to charge at a Tesla SuperCharger to get the fastest possible charging time for the car. I have successfully navigated myself down to this particular area. So what I am going to proceed to do now is completely turn off the vehicle's air conditioning system. That way, at least, it won't be a challenge for the car. I'll just plug in the charging cable. To 80% in just over 32 minutes. That's not particularly impressive, but I'm not very surprised either. This is because I got the exact same time when I performed the same test on a Model 3 Highland last year at the same chargers, and it uses the same battery. You have the typical Tesla charging curve where it goes incredibly fast from 0 up to around 40%, but then the party just ends there. And here in 2025, it's just not that impressive anymore. Let's also dig a bit into the numbers for this Odense challenge. First of all, I completed the trip in 2 hours and 16 minutes. Then I subtract 3 minutes. I always do that when I've done an acceleration test, because that's when I exit the highway, get out of the car, film the car from the outside, set up my race box. All those things take a couple of minutes. And I also stop when I reach the turning point, where I record a split time, while also setting the navigation to drive the opposite way. So I always subtract 3 minutes from that time, so it's 2 hours and 13 minutes. 2 hours and 13 minutes divided by the 258 kilometers I've driven gives an average speed of 116.4 kilometers per hour, which is actually quite good, considering there is currently roadwork in several places along the route. The fastest trips can be done at 120, but that's simply not possible at the moment. The car recorded a consumption of 196.4 watt-hours per kilometer. And if I calculate that based on a net capacity of 75 kilowatt hours, which my research shows this car has, it means that a full charge would give a range under the conditions I drove in of 381 kilometers. The actual consumption is probably a bit higher because the stretch of highway I didn't include in that number. It's a 130 kilometers an hour stretch all the way. And that's why I've also looked at the percentage points used, as I always do. I started at 81% and ended at 11%, so 70 percentage points disappeared. And if I divide 70 percentage points into the 258 kilometers, that gives a range of 268 kilometers. So somewhere between there, 375 kilometer is what you can expect this car to achieve under the given conditions. And it's also running on these optional 20-inch wheels, which also reduce the WLTP rated range to 568 kilometers. In just a moment, you'll get the 5 best and also the 5 worst things I can tell you about this car after having driven it for 14 days. But first, we also need to head down to Smedegard in the center of Varde. It's time for the Rattle test. I'm about to drive my reference stretch. That's Smedegard in the center of Varde, a beautiful old medieval street. On the other hand, it's also super uneven. I'm planning to drive 15 kilometers an hour over these cobblestones, and let's see if anything rattles. I don't know if you are able to hear it. There's something rattling from the back, a flapping sound. No, that's not good enough. It failed. And now for the 5 best, but also the 5 worst things to say about this Tesla Model Y Juniper. And let's start with the positives. What happens on this screen, the software in a Tesla, in general, is still the best, if you ask me. The second thing that impresses me about this Model Y Juniper is the car's energy efficiency. Even though this is an all-wheel drive version, it still has the best consumption in its class. The third thing I want to put on the positive list with this car is the ecosystem you buy into when you get a Tesla. In general, the superchargers, for example, they start charging incredibly fast right after you plug in the cable. You don't need to activate the charger. The car finds the chargers itself. Everything works super well. Let's call it convenience. The fourth thing on the positive list is about the sound system in this car. This is a dual motor version, and that means it's the car with the biggest sound system. It sounds excellent, although I preferred the system in the old Y. The fifth and final thing on the positive list concerns the car's practical virtues. It tows 1,600 kilos on the tow bar. There's plenty of space in the trunk, plenty of space in the front, and plenty of space in the cabin. This car is just practical. But of course, I've also made a list of the 5 worst things I can think of to tell you about this Tesla Model Y Juniper. At the top of that list, my favorite. Personal deal breakers. The reason I sold both of my previous Ys is the car's assistance systems. In my opinion, Tesla currently has the worst assistance systems in its class. The second thing on the negative list concerns this car's charging curve. It charges from 10 to 80% in just over 32 minutes. That's slow by 2025 standards. If you look at what some of the Chinese manufacturers are coming out with now, they're really in a completely different league. This car is, of course, relatively energy efficient, so you can get from A to B quickly, but you just have to stop and charge a lot of times because you shouldn't charge it above 40–50%, and then you have to stop and charge again. The third thing on the negative list for this car concerns the factory warranty, 4 years or 80,000 kilometers. That's on the disappointing side. It should be mentioned, however, that the car's capacity warranty in a 4-wheel drive Tesla Model Y like this one is 8 years or 192,000 kilometers, which is actually better than the competitors. Furthermore, the car's electric motors, or drive units as Tesla calls them, are also covered by this battery capacity warranty. But there are quite a few other things in an electric car that can break, and that's why 4 years or 80,000 kilometers is too little, in my opinion. I usually contact the local authorized workshop and get a price for an onboard charger for the specific car. That hasn't been possible because I can't find any email address or a phone number for Tesla in Ringkøbing or Aarhus.
Thank you for calling Tesla. For further self-service options, you need to press 6.
The fourth item on the negative list concerns operating very basic functions, like lights and wipers, in a car like this. You either have to operate them a bit awkwardly via the screen and these buttons on the steering wheel, or you have to use voice command. Voice command is probably the right way to go. I just think it's a silly way to operate things, especially when there are several people in the car. I don't want to do that. The fifth and final criticism of this car is a gut feeling I've had during the 2 weeks I've driven a lot of kilometers in this car. And that's based on the fact that I myself have been a Model Y owner. Of course, I had the older models. I had a 2021 dual motor long range, and then in September 2023, I bought a brand new dual motor long range. And if I look at those cars, not much has really changed. The software experience is pretty much the same. They use the same motor and they use the same battery. The charging time is roughly the same. Maybe it's just been tweaked a little bit. And of course, the car has gotten a new design. And it's been upgraded in terms of comfort. So now it might be on par with the cars it competes with in its class. But listen, I just got a press release from XPeng where the new G6 will get an LFP battery that charges from 10 to 80% in 12 minutes. You could say that's a kind of quantum leap. And here, only a little has happened. That being said, it's still an excellent car. Would I choose it? I probably wouldn't anymore. I think I've been there. I've fought my battles with the assistance systems, for example. But if you're interested in tech, this is still a really exciting car. There are just alternatives out there that I, at least, find more interesting today. If you like this video, then leave a like. If you didn't like it, you're more than welcome to hit the dislike button. Just remember to do it twice. Right here, there's a video about electric cars. Over here, where I'm standing, looking a bit speculative, you can click if you want to subscribe to my channel for free. Check out the relevant links in the video description. Remember to take good care of yourself and of each other on YouTube. And for God's sake, keep it civil in the comments section.